Hey, tonight we're exploring something quiet and strange. Imagine walking down a cobbled street in Paris. The stones under your feet are warm from the day's sun. The shutters above you creak gently in the breeze, and a cafe, golden lit and softly humming with quiet conversation, spills out onto the sidewalk with tiny iron tables and pressed linens. It seems like the kind of place you've seen 100 times in photos. Cozy, timeless, harmless. But tonight, your mind drifts under the surface. You step through the door of the cafe, hearing the bell above you chime once, as if it's marking your entrance not just into a building, but into another layer of memory. The light is amber, the scent a mixture of roasted coffee, sweet pastry, and something faint you can't quite place. Maybe earth. Maybe age. A waiter passes you, and for a moment, just a moment, you could swear he glances at you like he knows why you're really here. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy quiet stories like this. If you're still awake, feel free to post your location and local time. You're not alone. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The cafe is called La Brèche, which means the breach. No one ever talks about the name. It's painted in smooth cursive across the awning. It's just weathered enough to look like it's always belonged. There's no plaque, no story on the menu, nothing for tourists to gawk at. But people who've lived in this district a long time, long enough to remember the city before it softened its sharp corners, sometimes hesitate when they pass this place. They look down, or they walk faster. You sit at a table by the wall. The stone is warm, old. Your hand rests gently against it, and there's a faint unevenness, not crumbling, but layered. Like something pressed into it long ago that never quite smoothed out. In the late 1700s, this corner of the Marais was not cafes and boutiques. It was part of the old Cimetière des Innocents, a cemetery so overcrowded it began to push up against the walls of the city itself. Graveyards became unstable, bones leaked through crumbling masonry, and the air sometimes grew so thick with decay that it changed the direction of local winds. You wouldn't think that now, sipping a gentle espresso beneath soft jazz and candlelight. Eventually, the city made a decision, quietly and with almost no records. Bones were exhumed under cover of night, wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow, and transported through secret tunnels to the catacombs. Some were lost along the way. Some never made it out. La Brèche sits on one of those lost paths. It wasn't always a cafe. For years, this corner was avoided. Not cursed, not haunted, just skipped. The kind of place people didn't think about, didn't build on, didn't renovate. When it was finally converted into a cafe in the 1950s, the workers found odd hollows in the soil beneath the foundation. Not deep enough to be graves, too precise to be natural. They poured new concrete, flattened what was there, built over it with warmth and light and the scent of coffee. But sometimes when the cafe is quiet, especially late at night, guests have mentioned strange dreams after sitting too long in the back left corner. Nothing violent, nothing terrifying, just repeating dreams of steps downward, of gentle humming in the walls, of being watched by something deeply patient. Researchers in environmental psychology have studied the phenomenon of emotional residue, the idea that locations absorb the energy of intense human experience. Not ghosts, but echoes. Chemical, architectural, even microbial traces that shift how a person feels in a space, without their conscious mind knowing why. Some argue it's the limestone, Paris is built on a sponge of it, and limestone traps moisture, memory, even sound. Others think it's myth layered over architecture, reinforced through stories passed around like steam from a cup. But then again, no one really talks about La Brèche. The tiles behind the counter are hand-painted, cracked in one place near the edge. The owner says they've replaced that section 4 times, but the cracks always return, always in the same place. That corner happens to be directly above one of the hollows in the earth they never filled. You stir your drink, watching the patterns swirl. There's no noise now, just the distant rumble of the metro somewhere beneath your feet, or maybe not the metro at all. The thought drifts in slowly. How many footsteps have passed through this same spot without ever knowing? How many lives touched this stone, this soil, this air? You shift in your seat and feel something slightly off beneath your foot. A faint indentation in the tile, the kind your heel finds again instinctively each time it taps the floor. You press into it gently. It doesn't give. Historians once mapped the catacombs, then stopped. Too many missing segments, too many tunnels that shifted or branched, or never quite ended where they should. The map underneath Paris is still incomplete. There are known unknowns, and probably unknown ones too. No one thinks of any of this when they walk past La Brèche. It's just a place to stop for coffee. A place that wasn't always a place. A space that remembers being something else. And as you finish your drink, the air feels a little cooler. Or maybe the music shifted. Or maybe, just maybe, something ancient is still listening, still watching, still dreaming through you. You walk out into the night. The bell above the door chimes once more. Just once. The street outside the cafe is quiet now. The last traces of daylight have faded from the narrow windows overhead, and the air carries the kind of stillness that only exists in cities after midnight, when even the neon seems to hum a little softer, and footsteps are things remembered more than heard. You turn a corner and find yourself on a cobbled path you didn't intend to follow. But there's no rush. The night is long, and your body is heavy in that comfortable, weightless way, as if the pavement beneath you is doing more of the walking than your own feet. The next place doesn't announce itself. It's just a field, a wide, open meadow somewhere in the English countryside. The kind with a gentle slope and perfect green grass, as if someone has been trimming it every morning for the past 100 years. A few wildflowers dot the edge of the path. A stone wall runs quietly along the side. You might think it's just farmland, harmless, familiar, peaceful. But beneath this meadow lies a different kind of history, the kind you can't fence off. The kind you can't quite bury. They call it Red Earth, though there's no plaque to say why. Just an old name passed down among villagers, like a story that changes shape depending on who's telling it. But one detail stays the same. The soil here runs warmer than it should, even in winter. Not hot, just faintly restless. You lie down in the grass, letting your eyes drift upward toward the clouded sky. There's a breeze brushing over your skin, soft like breath. The blades of grass tickle your arms. It's a comforting place until you start to notice something else. There are no insects, no bees, no flies, no distant chirping of crickets. Just silence, a silence that leans in. Centuries ago, this field was the site of a battle, not one that changed the course of history. No kings or banners or romantic legends. It was more forgotten than remembered, which makes it stranger. Roughly 200 men, a local land dispute. Some think it was futile, others that it was simply a failed rebellion. What remains agreed upon is that no bodies were ever recovered. The town wrote it off as a misunderstanding, a skirmish. Then the land was repurposed, fenced, sold, replanted. It became farmland, then sheep pasture, and finally, nothing at all. Just space. But during a recent archaeological survey, using ground-penetrating radar, researchers found a strange anomaly, something just beneath the topsoil, long and narrow, repeating. A series of parallel lines stretching across the entire field. Theories vary. One suggestion was that they were remnants of ancient wooden beams laid out to support underground fortifications. But the wood, if it was wood, had long since turned to shadow in the soil, leaving only faint differences in density and warmth. Some of the lines pulsed faintly warmer than others. Not enough to measure by hand, just enough to feel. The villagers say that sometimes when a storm passes through and the thunder shakes the hill, the grass here rises, not like wind, but like breath. One long exhale across the entire meadow. You might feel it if you're still. If your heart has quieted enough to match its rhythm. Local children, years ago, used to play a game. They'd lie flat on the grass, close their eyes, and try to listen for the buried men. Not ghosts, not voices, just a sound described in whispers, like a slow knocking deep underground. Thump, thump, thump. Then they'd run laughing through the fields, trying to scare each other. But some wouldn't return for hours. One child in 1974 wandered into the mist and was found asleep under the wall, claiming he'd heard a lullaby that made him walk away. He never remembered the tune. Psychologists studying this kind of place talk about liminal geographies, zones where the human brain shifts into a state of lowered boundary awareness, where space feels stretched, time slows, and emotion becomes a kind of weather. Not dictated by mood, but absorbed from the land. Some think it's magnetic interference. Others say it's atmospheric pressure or subtle changes in barometric density. But those explanations don't account for the dreams. People who sleep on red earth, campers, hikers, the occasional adventurous academic, often report the same sequence. They dream of fog. Then of someone speaking softly behind them. Then of laying their own body down in the grass from above, like they're tucking themselves in. A few have even said they feel comforted by it. It's not a nightmare. It's something older than fear. Theories remain unresolved. One researcher from Oxford insisted that the warmth was due to a layer of decaying peat beneath the surface. Another argued it was simply residual sunlight trapped in the soil's mineral composition. But neither could explain the symmetry, and still, the field remains undisturbed. You glance down at your hands, now brushing against the grass. There's a smear of soil on your palm, faintly reddish in the moonlight. Maybe it's iron, maybe something else. No one builds here. The land is technically unowned, held in quiet stewardship by the surrounding town. Maintenance crews mow it, but only during the day. No one works the night shift. You rise slowly, brushing the soil from your fingertips. The breeze moves across the hill once more, long and slow, like something settling deeper beneath you. And as you walk away from the field, the silence follows. Not heavy, not angry, just there, quiet, familiar, as if something deep beneath the grass is still waiting to be remembered. You keep walking. The road curls softly around the hill, and the landscape changes without asking. The grass gives way to pavement again, then to stone, then to something smoother, almost too smooth, like it's been polished by years of footsteps no one talks about. You're in a city now. Not a loud one, but dense in the way cities can be when they're trying to hide something. You pass cafes, a pharmacy, a bookstore that's still open far too late. It feels lived in, safe, familiar, until it doesn't. The building ahead catches your attention without meaning to. Pale stone, wide windows, a clean modern glass entry. Soft uplighting illuminates its name, etched in frosted panels near the door. It looks like a clinic, not the hospital kind, smaller, more personal, somewhere people go to heal, to feel better, to be seen. But you stop because something in your stomach whispers, almost imperceptibly, don't go in. Of course you do. The inside is quiet, too quiet. Not sterile like a hospital, not homey like a therapist's office. It's somewhere between, suspended in that oddly hollow silence that happens when a room was built to seem safe, but the walls know better. Reception is empty. No one calls out to you. You walk past a row of neatly spaced chairs, all facing a wall of pastel abstract art, the kind that's meant to calm you down or keep your thoughts from drifting too far inward. But your thoughts drift anyway. The hallway curves slightly, unnatural for such a modern building, like it's avoiding something it doesn't want to acknowledge. You follow it, fingertips grazing the smooth white wall. It's warm, faintly, but not from sunlight. The warmth feels internal. This building wasn't always a clinic. Back in the 1920s, it was part of a long-since abandoned research facility. Officially, it focused on early psychological therapies, mostly talk-based, experimental, and gently controversial. Unofficially, it housed one of Europe's lesser-known isolation programs. Patients were removed from public institutions and brought here, placed into soundproofed rooms for weeks at a time, often without their consent. The idea, they said, was to reset the mind, to remove external noise, to force the psyche into reshaping itself under pure silence. But silence doesn't reset, it echoes. One room in particular was infamous, Room 9. No records remain of its construction, but later photographs show it had no corners. The walls curved softly into one another, like the inside of a shell. It had no doors when sealed, no furniture, save for a single recessed light, which sometimes flickered, even when disconnected from the grid. Modern neurologists have since studied the effects of extreme silence on the human brain. In controlled chambers, the brain begins to invent sound after just a few minutes. Soft humming, then whispers, then full auditory hallucinations. The threshold for disorientation is about 45 minutes. Room 9 held patients for up to 12 days. There are stories, not in medical journals, but in whispered accounts, of one patient who stopped speaking entirely after his time in Room 9. Not out of fear or trauma, but because he believed he was still there. That language, as he put it, had not followed him back. He died in 1941. No autopsy, no next of kin. Today, Room 9 is gone. The space was renovated, flattened, made useful. Or so they say. You walk deeper into the clinic. The lights overhead hum faintly, but it's not a mechanical sound. It feels familiar. The kind of sound your mind tries to ignore, but never entirely does. There's a waiting room at the end of the hall. Empty, of course. But on one wall is a framed photo. Black and white, blurry, clearly old. You step closer and see 7 figures lined up in white coats, smiling, though their mouths look too wide. In the corner of the image, barely visible unless you're looking for it, is a small placard. It reads simply, Experimental Cohort, R9, Session 7. The light overhead flickers, just once. You sit for a moment in one of the waiting chairs. The cushion gives slightly, but not in a comforting way, like something already pressed it down. And now, you're just borrowing the space it left behind. You wonder what happened to the rest of them. The cohort, the patients, the ones who stayed quiet long after leaving. Researchers today argue about how much of the human mind can truly recover from silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the structured kind, the kind engineered by walls that don't echo back. There's a term in environmental design called semantic null zones. Spaces constructed to suppress meaning, intentionally or otherwise. Blank walls, repetitive patterns, colors that trigger nothing. These places are not empty. They are hostile in their passivity. This clinic feels like that. Still, you breathe in. The air isn't stale, but it has no character, no identity. It's like breathing in memory that's been erased. You leave without speaking. Back in the night air, the breeze touches your face with unexpected warmth, like it's relieved you made it out. Behind you, the clinic remains still. A place for healing, maybe, or for forgetting. Or perhaps for testing how long a mind can hold its own shape before it starts folding in on itself. And somewhere behind those walls, maybe beneath them, a room that never had corners remembers everything you just tried not to feel. You walk away slowly. The sidewalk stretches quiet beneath your feet. The air is cooler now, more damp, as if somewhere in the distance a mist has begun to gather. Streetlights cast long reflections on the pavement, and your footsteps make no sound. Ahead is a park, small, unassuming, outlined by a simple iron fence that never quite rusts. The gate is open. No one stops you. You follow a narrow path lined with overgrown bushes. The scent is soft. Grass, wet stone, a trace of something floral. It's the kind of place where people come to walk their dogs, to sip coffee in the mornings, to pause on a bench and forget they're in a city at all. And that's where you see it. A wooden bench under a maple tree, slightly off-center, perfectly still. A bit worn down, the edges of the planks smoothed by weather and time. The kind of bench that seems to offer itself to you. An invitation. You sit. The wood creaks faintly under your weight, but settles. The tree above you stirs in the breeze, its leaves whispering something just on the edge of understanding. You watch a few of them fall, slow as thoughts drifting down from the back of the mind. It should feel peaceful, but something isn't right. You glance around. There are other benches nearby, all empty, perfectly clean, but none of them have that same presence, that strange gravity. You've chosen the one no one else ever seems to choose. This bench is avoided. Not officially. There are no warning signs, but regulars who visit the park every day, the elderly man with the newspaper, the dog walker with 3 leashes, the woman who knits in the afternoons, they never sit here. They pass it. They glance. Sometimes they even pause and then keep walking. You only learn this later. For now, the only thing you notice is the stillness. It deepens around you, settles behind your eyes. You blink slower. The sounds of the park fade away. No birds, no distant traffic, just the leaves and the wood and something waiting. It's not cold, but you feel a kind of pressure, like being gently watched from somewhere very close. You look at the tree again. It's old, older than the park, maybe. The roots bulge slightly beneath the bench, like the earth is pushing upward, or something under it is trying to rise. Decades ago, this small park wasn't a park. It was the back lot of a courthouse, the kind that handled local disputes, nothing major. But during the height of the Great Depression, that courthouse began quietly housing municipal investigations, the kind that never made it into papers. Lost persons, labor blacklists, and something else. Between 1931 and 1936, 27 people in the city were formally forgotten. That's the phrase found in a handwritten journal by a clerk who later vanished. Formally forgotten. Their cases were closed without resolution. Their names removed from rosters, photographs, deeds. Not missing, not dead, just omitted. Some of them had ties to the building. 3 were stenographers, 2 were interim judges. One, it said, was simply a man who liked to eat lunch on the bench beneath the tree. That bench, this one, it was never removed. Even after the courthouse burned down in 1943, under suspicious circumstances, with no reported casualties, the bench remained. The tree, too. In photographs from the rebuilding effort, you can see it. The same curved trunk, the same roots. Some say the bench is older than anything else in the park. Psychological studies on liminal anchors, objects that remain static through repeated changes in their environment, suggest that people unconsciously develop avoidance behaviors around them. Not because of fear, but because of an inability to categorize. This bench doesn't belong. It never did. You lean back and close your eyes, and for a moment, only a moment, you feel something beneath you shift. Not the bench, not the wood, deeper than that, like the ground itself sighing. You open your eyes, and for a split second, the park feels darker, like dusk arrived too quickly. But no, the sky hasn't changed, just your perception. Or perhaps the space around the bench drew a little more shadow to itself, as if trying to remember something it was never supposed to forget. No names are associated with this spot now. Even local maps label the park simply as Green Lot Number 4. It doesn't appear on walking tours. There are no public records of who planted the tree, no plaque, just the bench, just you. And that unshakable feeling that someone once sat here and never stood up. There's a story, rarely told, about a city councilman who visited the park during his re-election campaign, sat on this very bench for a photo op, smiled, waved. By the time the photograph was developed, his face was gone. Not blurred, not obscured, just missing. A blank oval where his head had been. He lost the election, moved away. No one remembers his name. You rise slowly. The bench feels reluctant to let you go, but the path welcomes you back, as if it's been waiting for you to leave. The wind moves through the leaves again, a little louder now, or maybe closer. You glance back. The bench sits perfectly still, as if no one had ever been there at all. You keep walking, deeper into the park now. The path winds softly between trees. The ground grows quieter underfoot, gravel giving way to moss, to dirt, to something so muted it's like walking on memory. You pass a small playground, empty and still, a fountain that hasn't run in years. Then a cluster of buildings rises beyond the trees, brickwork and narrow roofs, dormer windows and iron balconies. A university, maybe. Or a boarding school, something with rules and silence and formality. You step through the side gate. It isn't locked. The courtyard is clean, lined with ivy. The stones under your feet are dry but cold. You look up. A long row of windows stretches overhead, most of them open just a crack, enough to let air drift in or sound drift out. Except one, the 3rd floor. Far left, a window that never opens, never has. You walk toward the building, unsure why. Something draws you, a sensation without urgency, like deja vu layered onto muscle memory. Your hand finds the brass doorknob. It's cool, heavy. The door opens without a sound. Inside, the hallway is lit by soft yellow bulbs and old brass fixtures. Dust floats gently through the air. Your footsteps echo, but not sharply, as if the sound doesn't want to go far. This place feels preserved, not abandoned, maintained out of habit more than purpose, a place that no longer needs to exist, but refuses to stop. You find a staircase, wooden, worn smooth at the center from decades of quiet feet. It groans a little beneath your weight, then stills again. You climb, slowly. First floor, second, third. The hallway here is narrower. The wallpaper, pale green with thin gold lines, peels just slightly near the ceiling. You walk past closed doors. Some have names on them, others don't. And then you reach it. The window that never opens. There's no sign on the door beside it. Just a plain knob and a thin crack of light along the floorboards. Your fingers rest on the handle. It's already open. The room is bright. Sunlight from earlier must have lingered in the dust. There's a bed, perfectly made, a desk, a single chair, a shelf with books so untouched their spines still crackle when moved. And that window, tall, narrow, sealed shut, no hinges, no latch, just glass painted into place. Someone wanted it to seem like it could open, but never meant for it to. You sit at the desk. The air is different in here, still, but not stale, like something waiting for permission to speak. The wallpaper in this room doesn't match the hallway. It's white, unpatterned, eerily symmetrical. 4 bare walls, 4 bare corners, every object in the room perfectly aligned. The pen on the desk points exactly north. The bedspread's edge matches the grain of the floorboards. It feels wrong in a way that's hard to name. There's a term in visual neuroscience, gestalt incongruity. It refers to the discomfort we feel when a scene appears familiar, but the parts don't quite fit together. Not dramatically, just enough to disturb something beneath conscious awareness. This room is that feeling, crystallized. In the 1950s, this building housed international students, but one room remained unassigned for over a decade. Students made up stories about it, hauntings, deaths, secrets. But official records simply list it as structurally unsound, even when engineers found no flaws. The problem, they said, was environmental consistency. When it was finally occupied in 1964, the student, a girl from Belgium, left after 1 week. She said the mirror didn't show the right version of her face. No one could explain what that meant. The mirror was removed. Another student moved in, lasted 4 days. After that, the room was quietly taken off the roster. No announcement, no closure. Decades later, a faculty member used it for storage. One afternoon, she reported a visual alignment disturbance. Her notes, archived and mostly ignored, described the shadows in the room as refusing to behave. She wrote, "The light falls correctly, but the darkness does not. It pulls toward the window, as if something outside wants in, or something inside wants out." There's still no official record of this room existing. Your eyes drift toward the window. The glass doesn't reflect. It refracts slightly, warping the view outside. You notice the trees down below, but they're bent at the wrong angle, leaning inward, like they're bowing toward the building, or toward this room. You reach out. Your palm presses flat against the cold pane. The surface is smoother than glass should be, almost soft, and you feel not heat, but resistance, like something pressing back. A moment of stillness stretches thin. In 2012, an architectural historian studying deliberate spatial dissonance wrote about structures built to disorient gently, without the occupants ever noticing. Rooms constructed to mirror cognitive loops, windows that offer light but no escape. She called them perceptual traps. This room, she would have said, was a perfect example. You rise slowly. The air here doesn't want you to leave, but it doesn't ask you to stay either. It just waits. Outside, the hallway feels longer than before. You pass the same doors, but they seem older now, heavier. One of them has lost its nameplate. You descend the stairs, each creak a little deeper. Back in the courtyard, the ivy still climbs quietly. The building stands behind you, windows blank, except one, the third floor window, still sealed. still watching. You walk back through the courtyard, the sky now dim with early dusk. The world has quieted without you noticing. The birdsong has faded. Even the breeze feels muffled, as if the air itself is holding its breath. You glance back once more. The building's outline looms still, but the window, that one sealed window, catches your eye again. There's a faint glow now. Not sunlight, not electric, just presence. As if the room itself remembers being watched, or remembered being real. But the path keeps moving. You step through the outer gate again, out of the school grounds, and into what looks like a normal street. Trees, sidewalk, a lamppost beginning to flicker on. Somewhere in the distance, a train rattles faintly, a return to the everyday. And yet, you notice a house across the street. Simple. White paint peeling, a single porch light on, an address stenciled neatly on the mailbox, 137. Nothing strange, but your mind drifts. 137 is not just a number. In theoretical physics, it's a constant, the fine structure constant, denoted alpha, that describes the strength of the electromagnetic force. It's one of those peculiar, dimensionless values that governs reality itself. Some physicists call it the hand of God number, because no one knows why it has the value it does. Too high, and stars wouldn't form. Too low, and chemistry collapses. It's delicately balanced between order and non-existence. You keep walking, and the house slips from view, but the thought lingers. What other constants shape the world quietly? What invisible ratios keep things real? As your steps continue, you find yourself in front of a perfectly ordinary public library. Tall windows, polished stone stairs, a quiet, welcoming hush just inside. You step in, not because you plan to read, but because something calls you to rest here for a moment. The interior is warm, filled with the soft shuffle of books being returned, scanned, reshelved. The librarian nods at you politely. You nod back. Something about libraries has always felt different. The silence isn't empty. It's thick, curated. A hush made of memory, of questions asked, not answered, of time slowed down on purpose. You drift toward the local history section. And there, tucked between urban development records and historical cemeteries, is a slender volume titled Places That Changed But Never Healed. You pull it out gently. The cover is plain, matte black. No author, no date, just a single gold dot in the center. Inside, the pages are filled with entries, towns, rooms, streets, each one described in the same soft, hypnotic tone, and each one seemingly ordinary until something shifted. You begin to read. In Devon, a pedestrian bridge that echoes footsteps twice, once when you walk across, and again 3 days later, always at the same time. In Budapest, a street where shadows move faster than the people who cast them. In Chicago, a building that gets 1 floor taller every year, despite no construction being approved. And in an unnamed American suburb, a backyard garden that causes temporary aphasia when entered at dusk. The loss of words. Not fear, not pain, just silence where language should be. You stop turning the pages. The entry on the page before you now is the building you just visited. The same ivy, the same 3rd floor window, even the same words, environmental consistency. It's all there, except at the end of the paragraph, in handwriting different from the printed text, someone has scribbled, "That room doesn't exist anymore, but it's still there, waiting." You gently close the book. Your heart is calm but curious. No fear, just a hum in the spine. A subtle rearrangement of what you think reality is allowed to be. You place the book back. Step into the hallway. The world continues. A researcher once proposed the cognitive drift theory, that minds exposed to too many unresolved anomalies begin to shift, not into madness, but into a parallel mode of awareness. A dreamlike logic, a second lens laid gently over the first. You are not in a dream, but the veil between logic and memory has thinned. Outside, the sun has finally set. You walk again beneath amber streetlights. The air is cool now, the sky a deep, safe blue. Nothing around you is moving, but everything feels alive. The sidewalk carries you forward, past houses, past signs, past doors with no names. And though you haven't turned around, you know, without knowing how, that the window is still watching, not as a threat, but as a witness. As if it's recording you, the way deep ocean sensors record whale songs, not for use, not for judgment, but because the recording itself is sacred. A way of remembering, a way of keeping. You are further from the school now. It's no longer visible behind you, but it hasn't disappeared. It clings to your perception like the afterimage of a bright light, not seen but present. The farther you go, the more the world seems to fold gently into itself, like a dream becoming lucid just as it begins to dissolve. Your feet guide you down a gentle slope, and you find yourself in front of a place you've never noticed before. A small, local museum. One of those neighborhood landmarks that somehow exist without ever being remembered. The sign reads, Museum of Unremarkable Objects. You hesitate, but only for a second. Inside, the air is dry and clean, like the space has been carefully untouched for years. There's no one at the front desk, no security cameras, just a quiet, dimly lit interior and a faded map showing 3 exhibit rooms. Things that were once misplaced, things that were meant to be forgotten, things that are still waiting. You begin with the first room. It contains a series of glass cases. Inside each is an item too ordinary to warrant display. A house key, a child's sock, a spoon with one prong bent, a faded business card for someone with no title, a bus transfer dated October 17, 1993, destination smudged out. Each item has a small card beside it, not explaining what the object is, but what it witnessed. This sock once rested beside a bed where someone dreamed of drowning every night for 11 years. This spoon was used by someone who had never spoken out loud, not once, not even once. This key never opened anything, but the person who carried it never left home without it. The second room, things that were meant to be forgotten, is colder. Not temperature, but texture. It's less a room and more a feeling. The walls are lined with large, frameless mirrors that don't quite reflect what they should. You see your silhouette, your movement, your gesture, but your face remains delayed. There are no items here, just words, etched faintly on the glass. They don't form sentences, only fragments. Memories spilled and scattered. It wasn't a scream, it was a sound smaller than that. She left the light on because the dark could hear her heartbeat. Nothing is as loud as something that should never have been said. You don't stay long, and yet you feel as though something from that room follows you out, not in a malicious way, more like the static you carry after touching a balloon. The faint pull of something unfinished. You pause before entering the third room. Things that are still waiting. The door is heavier than expected. Inside, it's dark, not pitch black, but like dusk sealed in glass. A faint ambient glow pulses from the floor. The center of the room contains only one thing: a chair, old, worn, wooden. No plaque, no explanation. But you know, the way you sometimes just know that this is the chair people used to sit in before telling the truth. Not the kind of truth spoken out loud, but the kind whispered inward At 2:37 a.m., when no one is watching but you stand beside it. You don't sit. But for a moment, you feel the air around the chair bend slightly, like it's listening, like it knows your name, not your public name. Sure, the one people say aloud, but the one that only ever existed in your first memory of being scared. The chair is waiting, not for someone, but for the right moment. And now, maybe it has happened, or maybe it hasn't. You leave the room quietly. As you exit the museum, the sign has changed. It now reads, "Closed for observation." You're not sure if that means they're observing the objects, or you. Outside, the town feels more hushed than before. Not dead, just tuned down. As if the frequency of the day has dropped below audible range, and you're catching only the soft vibrations of what's left behind. You sit on a bench nearby. A breeze moves past, gentle and slow. Somewhere far off, a bell rings. Not a church bell. Something older, something inland. You realize the strangest part of this journey isn't the places, it's the stillness between them. The calm. The way the ordinary world, sidewalks, lamps, books, windows, accepts the disturbing histories without argument. Not because it's numb, but because it remembers too much to ever be surprised again. The bench creaks faintly beneath you. You don't know how long you sit there, but the next time you blink, the street lamp beside you is flickering. Just once, then twice. As if trying to send a message not in light, but in rhythm. A pattern you don't recognize, but which your body translates anyway. You were meant to be here. You were meant to see this, but only once, and like that, it stops. The light glows steady, the street is still, and you rise. You walk now with a kind of quiet intent. Like your body knows the path, even if your mind doesn't. The streets have grown narrower, not tighter, just more focused. Buildings on either side lean in slightly, as if eavesdropping. And the sky above is shifted into that strange silvery blue that doesn't belong to any particular time of day. It could be dawn, it could be dusk, it could be neither. Up ahead, a building that wasn't there before. You're certain of this. It looks like a public library, the kind you might have visited once as a child during summer break. Air-conditioned, forgotten, always smelling like pages and old upholstery. There's no sign. But you know what this place is. The forgotten library. The door creaks open without resistance. The air inside is still, not stale, just preserved, like the scent of memory held in suspension. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. No one is here, no staff, no sounds. The architecture feels off in the most subtle way. Ceilings slightly too tall, windows too narrow, aisles that turn just a bit sharper than necessary. The geometry doesn't feel wrong. It feels deliberate. You walk between the shelves, and then you notice these books don't have titles. Their spines are blank. You pull one down at random. Its cover is cool to the touch, like stone. Inside, neat, handwritten entries, no printed type. The words feel familiar but aren't your own. I watched the water rise for 3 days before telling anyone. There are colors I've only seen in dreams, and one of them is buried under the floorboards of the house I grew up in. I miss the sound of my father opening the peanut butter jar at night, thinking no one could hear. You try another book. This one is heavier, thicker. But when you open it, every page is blank, except the last one. One single sentence centered, "Do not remember this place when you leave." You pause. That phrase, it's not a warning, it's a request. You move deeper into the library. At the far end, you reach a small circular room, perfectly round. Its walls are lined with shelves that spiral upward, like the inside of a shell. There's only one object in the middle, a reading chair, low to the ground, worn but spotless, and on a stand beside it, a single book bound in black thread. You don't need to read the spine. You already know what it is. It's your book, and it's open. You approach slowly. Each step makes no sound, not even the soft scuff of movement. You reach the chair. The page it's open to is handwritten like the others, but this time the words change as you look at them, shifting, reforming, until they settle into something that chills you in a very quiet way. You almost remembered too soon. Below that, smaller text. It's okay now. Keep going, but slower. You glance toward the spiral walls. You feel something move in the shelves. Not a presence, not even motion, a recalibration, as if the books are aligning themselves behind your back. Not to trap you, to witness you. You don't read any further. You don't need to. You set the book down, and as you leave the circle, you realize this library isn't for knowledge. It's for containment. It stores the things people forgot on purpose. Not because they weren't important, but because they were too much. The entrance is still open. You step through it like a diver surfacing from depth. Once outside, the street is bathed in that strange sky glow again. You feel lighter, but not freer, as if some of your memory was quietly borrowed as payment, and in its place, a strange gift, peaceful unease. You begin to walk again. You don't know where to, but you sense the path isn't finished, because some places, the ones that look entirely normal, are still waiting to be found. You've been walking for some time now, long enough that the concept of time begins to lose its grip, like a soft thread slipping through your fingers. The air remains unchanged, cool, slow-moving, like it has no destination of its own. You notice the streets have started to curve, not sharply, just wrongly. They curve in ways that don't align with your inner sense of geography, like you're inside a city designed by someone who never learned what streets were supposed to do, only what they were supposed to feel like. There are no signs anymore, just surfaces, brick, concrete, iron, each one textured with a faint pattern like veins beneath translucent skin. You stop at an intersection. The ground here is different. Stone tiles, faintly patterned, dusty, but not broken. And something about the design pulls your eye downward, like you're looking at something meant to be seen from above. You wipe away a bit of dust with your shoe, and there it is, a faint engraving in the stone. Not in any known language, but your brain doesn't resist it. In fact, it accepts it eagerly, as though it's been waiting to understand it all along. You begin to see the pattern expand. Each tile is a fragment of a map, not a geographic one, but something stranger, emotional, psychological, a layout of the inner weight of the people who have passed through here. You realize this intersection marks a convergence, not of roads, but of decisions. A place where many lives once shifted just slightly. You kneel down, place your hand against the cool stone, and in an instant, you feel them. Not as memories, not as images, as pressures, like bruises in the air. A man who walked away from someone he loved and never forgave himself. A child who buried a photograph under these stones, believing it could stop the nightmares. A woman who sat here at 3 a.m. every week, talking to someone who never answered. Their weight isn't sad, it's just present. And then without fanfare, you hear a voice. Soft, measured, like someone speaking through a wall of water. You're not supposed to touch that. You turn. A figure stands nearby, unmoving. Not threatening, but not quite familiar either. They wear a coat, long, charcoal gray, weathered. Their face is unremarkable in a way that feels almost surgical, like someone designed it to pass unnoticed. They take a step closer. You see it, don't you? The map. You nod. Words feel unnecessary. Most people don't. They walk over it every day. Some even sleep on it. But it never shows itself, not unless someone's about to leave something behind. The figure tilts their head. Not curious, more like verifying something. You're not just passing through, you're shedding. That's why it opened. You try to speak, ask a question, but your voice doesn't emerge. Not out of fear, just friction. Like your body is slowing down to match the tempo of this place. The figure gestures for you to follow. You walk in silence, past more intersections, more engraved tiles, each one whispering with subtle ache. Eventually, you arrive at a large, flat clearing. No buildings, just a circular mosaic, stretching wide, made of stone and glass and metal. It pulses faintly under the evening blue light. The figure stops. This is the cartography of weight, they say. Each tile records something someone wasn't ready to carry anymore. You look down. Some of the tiles shimmer, others flicker, and one directly in front of you is glowing. Not bright, just enough to let you know it's yours. You kneel again. This one does have writing, but it's not a sentence. It's a memory. You read it, or rather you receive it. It's small, so small it almost feels silly. A time you said I'm fine when you weren't, and no one noticed, and you never brought it up again. It's not dramatic, it's not traumatic, it's just real. The figure watches you. Most people think these places only hold tragedy, they say. But that's not what lingers. It's the moments that were never seen, the tiny silences, the overlooked. You nod. Something releases behind your sternum. Not pain, not sorrow. Permission. You press your palm to the tile. It goes dim. You've left it here now. Not erased, just the figure turns. There's one more place, they say quietly, and it's not on any map, not even this one. You rise and you follow. No fear, no questions, just the sound of your own steps and the slight pull in your chest, like a compass made of memory, turning toward what comes next. The path has narrowed. It no longer feels like a street or even a trail, just a suggestion made by the land itself. Grass turns to gravel, gravel to dust, and eventually you're walking on something that feels like memory made solid. There are no sounds now except your footsteps and the occasional echo of something moving far away, but always behind you, never ahead. Then, without transition, it appears. A house, standing alone in the fog-softened dusk. You stop. There are no other buildings, no fences, no cars or roads or lights. Just this house, 2 stories, pale blue wood, a sloping porch, and windows that seem to hum with a kind of alertness. It is a house in the most ordinary sense, and somehow that makes it infinitely stranger, because it's familiar, deeply, uncannily familiar. Not like something you remember, but like something that remembers you. The figure stops walking. They don't say anything. They don't need to. You understand. This is the end of their path. Yours continues. As you approach, the front door opens on its own. Not dramatically, not creaking, just open. You step inside. The interior is dim, but not dark. Dust particles drift in the warm light, and the air smells faintly of wood and lavender. Every piece of furniture looks soft with time. The books on the shelf are dog-eared, with titles that make your stomach flutter. Not because they're important, but because you recognize them from dreams you'd forgotten. And that's when it hits you. This house wasn't built, it was remembered. Every object, every hallway, every worn-down corner is something you once half-imagined, maybe during a fever, maybe during childhood, maybe in the seconds between sleep and waking. And yet here it is, physical, present, waiting for you. You walk slowly. Each room carries a different temperature, not of heat, but of emotion. One room smells like rain and has a single drawing on the wall, something you once made as a child and threw away. Another room has a chair you used to sit in but don't recall ever owning. One room has no furniture at all, just wallpaper made of whispers, repeating things you once wanted to hear. You move through it not like a visitor, but like someone coming home through a different entrance. Then you reach the staircase. And here's the strange part. You can't remember ever being afraid in a dream, but now you are. The stairs spiral up, not in height, but in time. You take the first step. The air changes. Each stair creaks with a sound you've heard before, when exactly you can't place. You pass photographs on the wall. They flicker when you look at them. Some show your face, some don't. Some show you at ages you never lived. Or maybe haven't yet. At the top of the stairs, there is a single door, closed. You place your hand on the doorknob. It's warm. The air feels thicker now. Your breath slows and your heartbeat syncs with something in the walls, like a hidden engine or a sleeping heart. You open the door. Inside, there's a bed. Just one, neatly made, small but inviting. And next to the bed, a mirror. You walk to it, and for a moment you brace yourself to see something wrong, something twisted, something off. But you don't. You see yourself, just yourself, except your reflection is breathing slower than you are. And then it speaks, not aloud, just in your thoughts. You were never lost. You were paused. You look deeper. The reflection is calm, like it knows something you haven't realized yet. And then slowly it closes its eyes. You feel a weight leave your shoulders. Not pain, not sorrow, just static, lifting. The bed behind you rustles. You turn. No one's there. But you know, if you lie down, you'll dream. Not just any dream. The dream that continues everything. The one you've been orbiting this whole time. You sit on the edge of the bed. It sighs under your weight, like it's relieved you're finally here. You glance once more in the mirror. The reflection is gone. Only the bed, the room, the hum, and the sense that nothing ahead will follow rules, but it will still make perfect sense. You lie back. The ceiling pulses with faint patterns. Your limbs grow heavy. Your thoughts, light. As your eyes close, you hear a sound that doesn't exist in the waking world. The house breathing with you, and then nothing and everything. When you open your eyes, you are no longer in the house. There is no room, no bed, no ceiling breathing with you. Only the sensation of weightlessness and the faint rustle of something alive moving all around you. You sit up. But there's no floor. There is, instead, a field. Not quite earth, not quite air. Something in between, like walking across the skin of a forgotten memory. Stretching in every direction is a garden, but not the kind you'd expect. There are no roses, no vegetables, nothing neat or cultivated. Instead, the ground is crowded with plants that seem to bend toward you. Each one has a strange shape, twisted leaves, translucent stems, colors that shift when you blink. And here's the most unnerving part. Every plant is growing from a lost moment. You approach the nearest one. Its stem is made of words, tiny sentences wrapping around like vines. You lean in. They're your words, something you once whispered to yourself in the dark. The petals bloom as you read them, and the scent that drifts out is nostalgia sharpened into scent. The way a summer evening once felt before you knew what loss was. You move on. Some plants are made of sounds, a laugh from someone you haven't seen in years, the scraping of a chair on tile, the first note of a lullaby that no one else remembers. Others are made of textures, the warmth of a pet that's long gone, the smoothness of a childhood toy, the crackle of a book's spine when opened for the first time. All of them growing here, alive. You walk slowly, brushing your fingers across them. Some plants shiver when touched, others hum. You realize this place isn't just a garden. It's a museum of everything that nearly disappeared, and yet none of it is labeled. Nothing is explained. You must feel your way through it. In the distance, there's a tree, much larger than the others. Its trunk is made of braided shadows, and its leaves glow faintly like embers caught in wind. You're drawn to it. As you approach, the plants become denser. The air thickens, not unpleasantly, but like wading into a dream that's been waiting for you. The tree stands at the center of a shallow pool. The water is still, glass-like. You step into it. It doesn't ripple. You reach the tree and rest your hand against its bark. It pulses, not with warmth, but with remembrance. It knows you, and in a flash, you understand. This tree only grows from moments you almost remembered, dreams you almost wrote down, feelings you almost admitted, ideas you almost chased. You look up. Hanging from the branches are orbs, soft, weightless like dandelion seeds caught in stasis. Each one contains a tiny scene, playing silently. A version of you standing in a city that doesn't exist. A version of you holding a letter you never received. A version of you laughing without reason in a field of blue sun. You stare, transfixed. These are not hallucinations, they are could-have-beens. And each of them is still growing. The tree is not finished, and neither are you. One orb floats gently downward. It hovers in front of your face, pulsing faintly. You reach out and touch it. The world inverts. And suddenly you are standing inside the memory, a foggy hill, a child's voice echoing in the distance, a path that spirals upward with no destination. You walk. You know the memory isn't yours, but it fits like a hand-me-down dream that somehow still remembers your name. At the top of the hill is a mirror held up by tree roots. You look in and see not your reflection, but a version of yourself who never learned fear. They blink once, then they say, you left something in the garden. You turn, the orb dissolves, you're back under the tree, but now in your hand is something real, a small seed, black, still warm. You understand without being told. This is a memory that never happened, but it could. You kneel and press it gently into the soft, remembering soil. It accepts it, and for a moment, just one moment, you feel the garden breathe, as if thanking you. The tree sways, the pool stirs, the air softens, and in the very far distance, you hear a new sound. A train whistle. Not loud, not urgent, just waiting. You turn toward it and begin walking again. You walk. The garden of vanished time fades behind you, not disappearing, but receding gently, like a memory that knows not to linger. Ahead, the fog is tinged with soft amber light. You follow it. There is a quiet rhythm in your steps now, a sleepy anticipation, like you're approaching the edge of something important, but not urgent. Nothing in this world hurries, even time waits. Soon, a structure appears through the mist, a train station, but not like any you've seen before. There are no crowds, no announcements, no flickering digital boards. Just a long, narrow platform bathed in pale yellow lamplight. The lamps look like glowing flowers blooming in silence. You step onto the platform and the air changes. It hums with the electricity of possibility. On one side of the platform, tracks that seem to vanish into the night. On the other, a wall made entirely of doors. Wooden, brass-handled, some with carvings or small windows. Each one a little different. You run your hand along one door. It's warm. Your fingers pass over a faint inscription, only visible when you tilt your head. Age 11, the song you never sang. Another, age 22, the trip you almost took. Another still. Age 34, the person you never asked. Each door leads to a version of your life that might have been. Each one real enough to ache, yet imagined enough to remain soft at the edges. You don't open them. Not yet, because a train is arriving. There is no sound of wheels, no chugging engine, just a low harmonic chord like a cello being bowed in slow motion. The train materializes as if forming from fog. Its body gleams faintly, not with metal, but with memory. Its windows shimmer like the surface of a dream you've half forgotten. It comes to a stop with perfect quiet. The doors open. Inside, you see seats covered in velvet twilight, gently glowing. But here's the strangest part. Each seat is already occupied by a version of you. Some older, some younger, some smiling faintly, some watching you with quiet sadness, others simply asleep, breathing peacefully. They don't speak. They don't need to. You understand. This is the train of futures not chosen. Each version of you took a different path. One moved to a different country. One never left home. One became a teacher. Another disappeared entirely into music. One never recovered from a certain heartbreak. One never had it. And one of them, the one near the back, stares at you with deep, kind eyes. They look rested, not successful, not brilliant, just whole. They nod to the empty seat beside them. It's waiting for you. But before you board, something stirs behind you. The wall of doors begins to shift. One of the doors cracks open just an inch. A soft, cold wind slips through. And suddenly, you remember something. This place is not just a museum of might-have-beens. It's a hub, a way station between all the selves you've ever imagined. You don't have to choose a door. You don't have to board the train. You can stand here as long as you like. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear something else. A signal. Not from outside, from within you. It's faint, like the rustle of pages turning, or the sound of your name being spoken by someone who still believes in you. It's asking you one question. What version of yourself are you still becoming? The train breathes. The lamps flicker. The fog curls softly around your ankles. And in this moment, you are more than one thing. More than memory. More than dream. You are the traveler. You are the observer. And quietly, you are the author. The train won't leave without you. The doors won't close until you've decided. So you sit on the bench, between the future and the past, between the life you lived and the ones you never did. And for the first time in a long time, you feel no pressure to decide, just permission to rest. You sit there for a while, minutes, hours, or maybe something outside time. The train hums like a living thing, and the yous inside it wait, not impatiently, not anxiously. They wait like a library waits, full of stories, all of them true in some way, all of them dreaming you back. Eventually you rise, not because you must, but because you're ready. The platform beneath your feet feels steadier now, and when you step toward the train, it exhales softly, almost in welcome. You enter. The velvet seats stretch in rows down a long, glowing corridor. There are no harsh lights, no conductor, no ticket booths, just possibility. You walk down the aisle. Each version of yourself sits quietly, watching with a kind of distant affection. Some offer a smile, some close their eyes again, content to drift. One is wearing clothes you never owned. Another has a scar you don't recognize. One holds a book you've never written. Another is painting something you don't yet understand. And then you reach that seat, the one you were meant for. Not because fate demanded it, but because something inside you gently chose it, long ago, maybe while you were sleeping. You sit. The velvet is cool, then warm. The window beside you shows nothing, only slow waves of color, like clouds passing over memory. You take a breath. It's deep, uncomplicated. You didn't realize how much you needed that breath until it arrived. The train begins to move, but it doesn't jolt or roar or rattle. It simply drifts. You are not traveling across land. You're moving through thought, through paths you almost took and paths you still might. Outside your window, the colors begin to shift. You see a house that never existed but feels familiar. A porch bathed in sunlight, a voice calling you in for dinner, a song you knew in another life. Then, a city street, a single moment from a future birthday. A gift you haven't received yet, but hope someone gives. Then, a quiet beach at night, the tide writing soft riddles into the sand. You're sitting there older, holding someone's hand. The train moves through all of it, not rushing, not skipping, just showing you that the life you live is not the only one that matters. The lives you've imagined, the versions of you that tried and failed, the people you almost became but didn't, they all exist in a way that matters. They make your real life deeper. They make your present self wider. This train is not about regret. It's about continuity. About the gentle truth that everything you've ever felt, every unspoken wish, every silent longing, still echoes somewhere in this strange and secret rail line. You close your eyes. The sound of the train isn't mechanical. It's organic, like breathing, like being held. And in the soft darkness behind your eyelids, a door opens. Not in the train, but inside you, behind it, a field of stars. Each one a moment you've forgotten, each one a part of your story. You drift into them. You feel weightless, not because you've lost something, but because you finally set something down. You realize you are not dreaming. You are being dreamed by all the versions of yourself that ever loved you, by the universe, which is not judging, only watching patiently as you remember how vast you really are. The train goes on. It always does. But for now, you sleep, gently, deeply, held not by walls or wheels, but by every possible you. And somewhere in the distance, through the velvet dark, the conductor does not shout, but whispers, "You are not lost, you are just on your way home." You don't know how long you've slept, but the moment you stir, you sense a change. Not in the rhythm of the train, it still glides softly, timelessly, but in the air. It carries the faintest smell of pine and something older, like forgotten paper or rain on stone. You open your eyes. The window beside you no longer shows drifting colors. Instead, there's a platform just ahead, bathed in a muted golden light, glowing like memory made solid. No announcement, no screeching halt, just a quiet deceleration, like the train is sighing. You glance around. The versions of you remain seated, peaceful, unchanged. But one of them, just one, turns and nods. They know where you're going, and that you're ready now. You rise, again, not because you must, but because something deep inside you is tugging, gently but firmly, like a string tied to your real name, the one the world forgot but the stars remember. The doors open. You step onto the platform. It's quiet, but not empty. There are sounds, barely there. The crackle of a fireplace, wind passing through tall grass, a child laughing somewhere far away. You can't see the sources, but they feel familiar, as if they belong to you and always have. Ahead is the station building. It's small, old, stone walls draped in ivy, with a clock that doesn't tick, and a door that's already open. The sign above it simply reads, "Welcome back." You hesitate, not from fear, from knowing. This place is important. You cross the threshold. Inside, a room that seems too big for the building. Walls covered in framed images, some photographs, some drawings, some things that can't quite be either. You approach them. There's you, as a child, clutching a stick like a sword, face fierce with imagination. There's you, sitting alone on a school bench, pretending you didn't care. There's you, older, watching a sunset with someone whose face is warm, if blurred by memory. Some frames are blank. You touch one, and for a second, it flickers to life. A version of your future. Just one. You, standing in a garden, holding a letter, smiling, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand. A voice beside you speaks, low and gentle. Most never stop here. They ride past, they're not ready. You turn. No one's there, but the voice remains, in the room, not from it. Like the station is speaking directly to your mind. This is not where your journey ends, but it is where something reconnects. You walk deeper. In the center of the room is a table. On it, a book. It's thick, bound in soft leather with no title. You open it, inside, a diary, but not in your handwriting. Each page is written in the careful hand of others, people you've never met but somehow know. A grandmother who died before you were born. A friend you lost touch with but think of often. A version of yourself from a life unlived. Each entry begins the same way. To the traveler who remembers in dreams, they write to you as if they've been watching from a quiet corner of time, hoping you'd arrive. You read until your heart aches, not with sadness, but with recognition. You've been looking for something. Not success, not answers, not even rest. Just proof that you mattered, that you were seen, that somewhere in the great swirl of the universe, you left a mark. The station nods. It always knew. You close the book. The light in the room softens like a candle burning low. Time to leave. You step back outside. The train is waiting. Of course it is. You glance at the station one last time, and though it remains stone and wood, you swear it smiles at you. You step aboard. The doors close without sound. The train resumes its journey. Not faster, not slower, but with you more whole. You take your seat, not the one from before, a new one. And through the window now, the stars begin to return. One by one, as if they missed you. You lean your head back. You don't need to sleep. But if you did, you know you'd be safe here, held by velvet and memory, by possibility and truth, and by a station that waits for no one, except you. The train rolls on, and you feel it now, a pull like gravity, but quieter. You're not sure how long you've been traveling, but it no longer matters. This is the final stretch, the final descent. Outside the window, the stars begin to fade, replaced by something else entirely. A mist that creeps in slow, curling at the glass, like it's curious about you. You close your eyes for only a moment, and when you open them, you're no longer on the train. You're standing on an old, crumbling path of bricks, each one worn smooth by time and footsteps you somehow remember. A lantern swings lazily from a crooked post beside you, casting a soft amber light that never quite reaches the edges of the fog. Ahead, a gate iron wrought and overgrown with vines that shift subtly when you're not looking. The sign above the gate reads, Somnolence. You pass through without hesitation. This is the town beneath your dreams. Not beneath your bed. Not beneath your house, but beneath your mind, deep in the folds where lost things go. The streets are quiet. No cars, no music, only the whisper of wind moving through alleyways that seem to breathe. You walk slowly. Buildings rise around you, Victorian houses with sagging roofs, a post office with shattered windows but mail still sorted neatly inside, a school where the swing still creaks though no one pushes it. The entire town feels paused, like it's waiting, and it is. For you, every so often you see flickers in the mist, people, or maybe just echoes. A woman brushing her hair in a window, a child chasing a balloon that vanishes the moment you blink. A man sitting alone on a bench, reading a newspaper from a date that hasn't come yet. You try to speak, but your voice doesn't leave your throat. You realize this place doesn't run on language, it runs on memory. You reach the town square. In its center, a fountain, but no water flows. Instead, the bowl of the fountain is filled with small glowing stones, each one pulsing gently like a heartbeat. You step closer, and then you feel it. Not through your skin, but through your spine. Each stone holds a dream, not just yours, everyone's. A dream of a girl who never got to say goodbye. A dream of a boy who flew too high and forgot the ground. A dream of a man who buried his heart in the sand and forgot where. And one of these stones belongs to you. You know exactly which one. You reach down. As your fingers touch it, everything stops. The fog, the distant flickers, even the wind. You are alone now. Not in a terrifying way, but in the way you sometimes feel in the deepest part of sleep. That moment where you are just you, not a name, not a body, but a thought that hasn't ended yet. And the town speaks, not in words, but in feeling. We are what you left behind. The things you deemed unworthy of remembering, the fears you buried, the hopes you whispered too softly. We are not haunting you. We are holding you. The stone in your hand pulses. A memory rises. Not a big one. Not a tragic one. Just you on a rainy afternoon, watching water race down a window, wondering if the world would ever feel simple again. You forgot that moment, but it never forgot you. This town is full of them, forgotten fragments. They don't want revenge. They just want rest. You close your hand around the stone. You say softly, "I remember," and the stone goes still. The fog lifts just slightly, enough for you to see a small house at the edge of the square. The door is open. The light inside is warm. You walk to it. Inside there's a room, a chair, a fire, a bed. On the bed, a journal. This one is yours, blank, waiting. You sit down. You begin to write. Not a story, not a plan, just a sentence. Then another and another. You don't stop, you don't need to. When you finally do look up, the fire has burned low. Outside, the town is silent again, but now it feels at peace. You lie down, you close your eyes, and as you drift off, you realize something simple and powerful. Sleep is not the absence of life, it's where life returns when the noise is finally gone. You smile, and the town beneath your dreams lets you go. And now, the story fades. The streets of somnolence have gone quiet. The mist has settled. The lanterns dimmed. The memory stones rest once more. And so do you. You've wandered through shadows and silence, walked gently across forgotten places, and touched the thoughts most people leave behind. But that's what sleep is for, isn't it? Not to escape, but to remember. The parts of you too soft for the daylight. The parts that whisper, not shout. That dream, not demand. That ask only to be held for a moment before floating back into the dark. You've been brave, braver than most. Not because you faced something monstrous, but because you were still and you listened. To the train that didn't stop, to the rooms that watched you, to the town that waited for no one but you. Now the story ends, but your sleep is just beginning. Let your thoughts go quiet now, like pages closing one by one. Let the fog come gently, like a blanket, like a breath. You are safe here, not alone, not forgotten. You're simply drifting. And that's exactly where you're meant to be. So close your eyes, take one last slow breath, and let yourself fall into the quiet that welcomes you back every single night. Sleep well, dream traveler. We'll see you when the lanterns flicker again.